people.
Oh, what's up, everyone? I'm Adam,
And I'm Patrick.
and we are program managers on the Fabric product team. So we work on the Fabric CAT team, customer advisory team, working with the world's largest. Yay, you're still kind of there. It's all right. But we are on the Fabric product team, and we eat, sleep, breathe Fabric. How many people in here use Power BI? All right, good. That's what I expected.
You should have went the other way.
No. Yeah. How many people use Fabric? Liars. Everyone that raised their hand for Power BI should have raised their hand for Fabric because Power BI is Fabric. It's amazing, right?
Not really.
Yeah, it is. It's all Fabric. It's a
I
nice,
can have a
happy
pro
feeling.
license, and that's not Fabric.
But Power BI is Fabric.
Okay,
so.
we'll talk about it later.
All right. All right, so just to level set, what we're going to go through here, we've got a lot of demos planned, but we're going to go through the different options of what you can leverage inside of Microsoft Fabric. So Microsoft Fabric is a unified platform that encompasses your data plus different analytical engines that are exposed within inside of Microsoft Fabric. Go. Yes. And so what do we mean by a unified system? So for all the folks that, we're Power BI, but we're not Fabric, what happened was Power BI, I asked Patrick this back in the day, because he's like, I just want to do Power BI. I'm like, what does that mean? Because back before, when we said Power BI, it was capacities, workspaces, gateways, data flows, Power BI reports, semantic models. I still say data sets, though. And today, those items outside of the reports and data sets is Fabric. That's the Fabric platform, right? So those are all things that are available to every engine inside of Microsoft Fabric, including Power BI, right? And so what we want to do, though, is focus in on which of the actual analytical engines that are present inside of Microsoft Fabric do you pick, right? It's a tough choice, Patrick. How do you know?
It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Well, what would your initial answer be?
Lakehouse.
No. No, it should be, it depends.
No, Lakehouse.
Oh, all right. Lakehouse, all the things.
Yeah.
Right? But we've got options, right? So
Yeah.
data engineering is Lakehouse. We've got data warehousing capabilities. We've got this real-time analytics. How many people use real-time analytics or like KQL?
Two people.
Right. 2 people. We're going to show you something. You'll be like, wow, that's actually pretty cool.
2 people.
All right. And then, of course, we've got Power BI, right?
Power BI is an analytical engine?
Yeah, it's analysis services.
Oh,
That's the heart of Power BI, right? It's a tabular model. That's the data set. That's the semantic model, right? So,
Okay, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
All right.
Okay. So which one do you use?
I use Power BI.
You use Power BI.
Yeah.
So which one, and how do you make that decision, right? And so first thing we're going to talk about is a lakehouse. And so people always go, well, what's a lakehouse? What's a lakehouse? So if you think about a data lake, remember data lake? You remember that term, data lake?
That was when they coined the phrase big data, right?
Big data. Don't put an adjective on my data.
Big data.
So you remember data lake, and then everybody stopped talking about data lakes. But you remember data lakes, and then we had a data warehouse.
Yeah.
Remember, everybody knows Kimball, star schemas. If you talk to Adam
Star
or somebody
schema, all the things.
on the CAT team, they say make a star schema,
Yes.
dimensions and facts. And so they went out, like we did last night, the data lake and the warehouse, and they got drunk.
It happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
And they spent the night together, and they produced the lakehouse. So the lakehouse is the offspring of the data lake and the data warehouse. Because in the data warehouse, it's a fine-tuned schema. In the data lake, that was for engineers and data scientists.
That's where I put my PDFs.
That's where you put your PDFs. That's where you put your images, your JSONs, your XMLs, your CSV files. And so they brought both of those together, and now we have a lakehouse. Who knows what's next, right? Who knows what's next? When we were in Oslo, this one guy, he was sitting in our workshop, and he's like, why can't we just have the house? I was like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant, but we don't.
We're just getting started with Fabric, right? So
who knows?
maybe
Who
give
knows?
us a few years.
Give us a few
and,
years.
the little baby will grow up. And
Yeah, the little baby will grow up. And so, but your lakehouse is for your data engineers and your data scientists. And so I was talking to Simon Whiteley. Maybe you all know Simon. Simon is this crazy data engineer. It's for Simon. That's what the...
Don't ask him which one he would pick.
Yeah,
That's
don't,
not,
right? And so it's for them. It's built for Spark data engineers. How many of us can set up Spark clusters in the room? I want to see, really?
yeah, do it proud. Like, you don't, you're like,
I mean, right? Very few
okay.
people, very few people.
right.
How many people write Python in the room? The numbers are increasing.
Did you know that I write Python?
No, you don't. Okay.
ChatGPT,
and so
baby. ChatGPT.
No, you do not. You are not ChatGPT. And so,
No, I'm not
yeah,
ChatGPT.
okay, yeah. And so there's a delightful authoring experience. I stole these slides.
Delightful.
I stole these slides, all right? This is marketing terms. I did this, and it's delightful. I'm not in marketing. I'm not in marketing. And it's you basically have all the data you need to do all types of analysis when it comes to the Lakehouse. You have your business analyst who can connect to your pristine set of managed tables, and then you have your data scientists if they want to go against the raw data that you're extracting out of your various sources. So you actually have both, right? And so this is a really eye candy. So I hate all the words on the slides. That's pretty much what I just said. It's pretty much what I just said. But what was interesting is when I saw it's good for a data analyst. Really? What can a data analyst do with the Lakehouse?
They analyze data.
What if they don't have a data engineer? What if there's no data engineer to help them build this Lakehouse? What can a data analyst really do?
Copilot.
Copilot, no. This is not a Copilot session.
I know.
Okay, let's not talk about Copilot. You talk about in your own session. So if you have a data engineer on staff, they will build your Lakehouse, they will write notebooks, write Python, Spark jobs, all these types of things. But if you don't have a data engineer, then what can a data analyst do? I'll show you.
All right.
Okay? And then we also have shortcuts.
This is the magic of Fabric.
It's the magic of Fabric. So there's so many ways to ingest data. And we're not talking about that until I'm in New Zealand. But there's so many ways. There's so many ways to ingest data into Fabric. You can use notebooks. You can use pipelines. You can use, what's the thing? Data flows Gen 2. But what if you don't want to move your data into Fabric? What if you want to copy it, the raw forms of it? You just want to transform that raw form and make some type of managed table. Well, you can use shortcuts and you can connect to these different sources. It's really interesting that you can connect to our competitors.
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
Okay.
I like it. It's a bold move by Microsoft.
The idea of shortcuts, how many people understand what a shortcut is? All right, most
That's a good point. That's a good point. You should tell them what it is.
So the way I like to think about it, it's a reference, right? And so if you're familiar with Windows, you've got, you can have a shortcut to a file. So like I put that on my desktop and it points to a file on my hard drive. We didn't your file's not on your desktop, it's back on your hard drive, which would technically, your desktop's on your hard drive too, so that's a bad analogy.
That's a very bad analogy.
But when you double click on that shortcut, you're actually hitting the reference to the file where it is in the path, and that's what a shortcut is in Fabric. So we're making it into a logical part of OneLake. It's not physically in OneLake, but it's represented in OneLake logically. And when we pull those things up, if it's coming from AWS, those files are still in AWS.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good one. So let me show you.
All right.
Let me show all this stuff that Adam is talking about. And so this is Fabric.
Yeah.
Introducing
Well,
Fabric.
they all know that because they were using Power BI.
Okay. And so I'm going to go into the Lakehouse experience. And so remember I was talking about this data analyst. Remember the data analyst I was talking about. And so if they want to tinker and they want to play, a lot of times the way that Adam and I learn is we just go and break stuff.
Try it.
We go try it and we learn. That's how the videos come about.
Yeah.
And so I try something, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a video on this. Right? And so I created a Lakehouse. So all you gotta do is create a Lakehouse. Just click here, go to more options, and then you'll see the data engineering experience, and you can choose Lakehouse. And so, and I didn't click it. And so, it's just bad. Anyway, and so we'll go more options. You choose Lakehouse, and boom, you give it a name. You don't have to set up Spark clusters. You don't need to set up storage. You don't need to set up networking. Your Lakehouse is automatically created. I'm not going to create one.
Magic.
Right? It's like a cooking show. We already have one created.
Yep.
And so when you create the Lakehouse, you get 2 additional items. You get a default semantic model. I was going to say data set.
Say data set.
And you get a SQL analytical endpoint.
It's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words. SQL analytical endpoint. SEA. SQL, SAE. SQL analytical endpoint. SAE. We like acronyms at Microsoft.
Sure.
So you get a SAE. I just came up with that one today. Okay, start using it. We're gonna make that. That's gonna go viral.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks.
That's why.
That's why he's in marketing. He comes up with these things.
I'm not in marketing.
All right.
Don't say that. That's why you're a manager and you're not up to date on tech.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's why I'm doing most of the demos. Anyway, so Yeah, the SQL analytical endpoint. You get those two items. With the analytical endpoint, the difference. So when you create a warehouse, you also get a SQL endpoint, a
Yeah.
SQL endpoint. Okay, and I'm going to talk about the differences later. But you get both of those items. And what you can do is you have two sections of this lakehouse. Remember I said the lakehouse is the offspring of the data lake and the data warehouse.
Oh, that was a bad scene.
Say it again.
Never mind.
A bad saying?
You figured it out. Go.
Okay, so there's two sections. You got your table section and your file section. Your file section is where you upload all your messy, unstructured data, CSV files, Parquet files, JSON files, whatever, things like that. But if I'm an analyst, I have this file section. All I need to do is click click the ellipsis, choose upload, and choose upload files or folder, and I can upload CSV files, Parquet files, images, whatever I want into this section. Or there's a fancy little OneLake Explorer thing that I have where I can actually upload files directly from my file system or wherever I want to upload them from into this section.
So this is a pro tip. If you really want to do large-scale data movement to build out your lakehouse, just open up OneLake Explorer and just copy the files in every morning.
And just do it every morning.
Good.
Every morning. That's your ETL process, your mouse. Your mouse is your ETL
Yep.
process.
Yep.
And so then what you do is once those files are there, the second part of your ETL process is you can, and I went out the lakehouse. That's okay.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's okay. You can click the ellipsis next to the files. So these are the actual files that's in the lakehouse. You click the ellipsis, and then you can say load to tables, and boom, it loads it. Second part of your ETL process, right? And so then,
Wait, you just did a no-code lakehouse.
boom, that's what I do. No code, all
amazing.
right? Low code, because we're going to write a little code.
Well, right now it's no code.
There's no code right now. So
Yeah.
you can do this as an analyst. If you want to tinker, now, honestly, should you do something like this if you're building a large scale? No. No, don't do that. So you would use notebooks or pipelines or something like that. And so before I move on and show you a notebook, you see right here we have the folder has a little
It's a link.
link. I thought it was a paperclip at first, but
Not
it's a
from
link.
Zelda.
Oh, it's not from Zelda. That's
from
good.
Zelda.
Not from Zelda. And so it's a shortcut. So Adam's analogy was really bad about the local machine.
It's not bad.
It was awful. And so this is a shortcut back to an ADLS Gen 2 storage, Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage, that's in a separate tenant. It's not in our Guy in a Cube tenant, it's in a separate tenant. But somebody gave me the credentials so I can authenticate. And so basically, if I click right here and choose new shortcut, it's going to launch the new shortcut wizard. And see, you have some choices: Microsoft OneLake, Amazon S3, ADLS, and Dataverse. There's more. You saw on the
More
slide.
will be coming.
Well, it's on the slide. I think it was Google.
Yeah,
It
Google's
was on the
there.
slide.
Google's coming.
And so you can create shortcuts to these, and you just walk through a little wizard, authenticate. But once you do, you can see that link, and this is just pointing back to those files that live in a different tenant in ADLS. I didn't have to copy them, because I was going to write a PowerShell script to use AZ copy to copy it all to my Guy in a Cube tenant, but I didn't have to do that. I just created a shortcut, and then what I can do is I go to my notebook right here. So there's a notebook.
Here comes the code.
Here comes the code, right? So I created this notebook long time ago. I did this long time ago. And so we actually don't need that anymore. But this is some simple Python, but you can see right here, I'm just doing a file reference, a reference to the data that's on that shortcut. I'm not going over and copying it physically. I'm actually going to do some data movement to create a managed table, but I can write a script that writes Python directly over that shortcut and persist that data into managed tables that my business analysts can use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so we just reference it as if it's just one lake, even though it's not, right? So it's that logical representation.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's nice.
And so I actually stumbled on this.
Oh, this was nice.
This is
is
crazy.
nice.
So once you write all your Spark and your notebooks and things like that, you can go right here and say schedule, and I can actually schedule.
What?
Yeah, I can actually schedule the
I
execution.
thought
of
you had to use a pipeline.
You don't have to use a pipeline. You don't have to use a pipeline. You can schedule the execution of your notebooks right here in the Lakehouse. And what's even better is you can use a notebook to call a notebook. You can make them run in parallel. You can have them run sequentially. So maybe I have my ETL load and it's dynamic and I'm doing type 1s and type 2 dimensions. I need those to happen before my fax load. So you can all schedule this without using pipelines or anything.
That's
you can,
nice.
using Senpai, you can actually schedule, reframe, and Phil talked about this in this 100-minute session.
Wait. You're just throwing Senpai out
I'm not.
there. Like
I'm going to
everyone
mention
knows
it. I'm going to
Okay.
mention. I'm going to talk
All
about it. So it's a Python library that allows you to interact with semantic
sets.
models. Semantic models.
Sure.
Data sets, that's not a word anymore. It's dead to us. Semantic models, that's the new one. SM, semantic models. Another acronym. Boom, another one today, right? And so semantic models, so you can actually refresh your semantic model. As you can make that part of the orchestration process or reframe it so that you're doing all these inserts and updates. And we'll talk about this tomorrow in Phil and I's session if you missed the one yesterday. Any questions, Adam?
I have lots of questions.
Go for it.
No, it's okay. One
Okay,
more.
yeah. You don't have questions?
I do.
All right. Any questions? Yes, yes, ma'am. What's a notebook?
All right, that is a great question.
It's a piece of paper.
No, it's a book that has paper in it.
It's a book that has paper.
So a
Yeah,
notebook.
yeah. No, I kid. I kid.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
kid.
yeah.
I kid. I kid. I kid. Say it again. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Okay. I'll say that. Go ahead. Say it.
So notebooks aren't where the data is, right? You can write code within notebooks. You can orchestrate things. You can start off processes with it. You can write code inside of notebooks, and that can interact with data. Yeah.
So Prathy is doing a full session on what they are.
She will explain every
tomorrow at
detail
what
about
time?
notebooks in
Tell
her
us.
session.
Before lunch.
Before
I don't know
lunch.
what time. She doesn't know what time her session is. That's okay. That's okay. I don't know. She's got this session, but she has no idea what
We
time.
lined it up,
Yeah.
and then swing and miss.
Strike out.
Yeah,
Right.
baseball references
Right.
in Europe.
Or
Yep.
maybe it went outside the goal. You kicked it and it didn't go in. Right?
Yeah.
Or the goalie got
Or
it.
it bounced off the guy's head.
Something like that. I don't know
Question,
soccer.
Question.
Yeah. How would you go about triggering that notebook from an external event? I don't know the answer
Can we
to
trigger
that.
that from Data Activator?
Can you? Does anybody know? I don't know.
can we-
Catherine, do you know?
Well,
Are you talking about pipelines maybe? I mean, because you can trigger it from a pipeline. You can trigger it,
The question, I guess, would be, yeah.
yeah, outside.
So the question
Ah.
is what's the trigger point, and then what can we reference to actually execute the notebook?
I want to write that down.
There's probably an API to do it, but I don't know that there
I'm
is.
going to write it down. I'll find
Yeah.
out.
And what I will say is, in various research, if there is an API, use that. If there's not an API, I would like to introduce you to ideas.fabric.microsoft.com, where you can go submit your feedback and then vote up on other things.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
question though, because
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I'll find out, or we'll find out. I don't know the answer. You don't have to go to
Casper's
ideas.
saying yes, there's an API.
There's an API.
See?
Casper
Now-
says there's an API, so that means we're going to
Yeah,
do a
yeah,
video
there
to show
go.
you how to do it
We
with
just
an API.
crowdsourced it. This is how
Yeah.
we do it on the live stream too.
All right.
It's great. Now you don't need to go to ideas.fabric.microsoft.com. So
I'll
we
do a
just
video.
saved you some clicks.
I'll do a
Look at
video.
that.
I'll do a video.
On ideas.fabric.microsoft.com.
No.
Okay.
Come on, man. Stay focused. Stay focused. Okay. So you got the Lakehouse. A lot of people don't know Python. A lot of people don't know how to set up Spark clusters, don't know how to manage Spark clusters. You can customize the size of your Spark clusters and set up environments and things like this in your Lakehouse, way beyond the scope of this talk. But then we have the warehouse. How many of you are actually using some type of warehouse in your organization today? Right?
How many people used Azure Synapse Analytics or are currently using it? Interesting.
Interesting. A good bit.
Interesting. Yeah,
More than I
that's good.
thought.
That's
Yeah,
good.
More than I thought.
So if you're using Azure Synapse Analytics, you're absolutely familiar with warehouses. And so the team that built that are the ones that have worked on the data warehouse inside of Fabric. So this is just SQL, right?
It's just SQL.
Yeah. Question.
Data Lake and One Lake.
What was the question again?
What is the difference between Data Lake and One Lake?
So data lake is a concept. One lake is a feature,
It's a thing.
right? I can touch it.
You can touch it?
Yeah. Don't you?
You know, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Okay. You can't touch it.
Can't touch it.
You can't touch this. You can't. You MC Hammer?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir. 12.
There-
Wait,
Wait, it's after lunch.
That's before lunch.
What did they say?
Noon.
Oh, I thought he said 4.
Just take a nap. Okay. Data warehouse.
Excellent.
Everybody's got a data warehouse.
Yes.
Everybody's been using data warehouses.
Excel counts, right?
Excel is not a database. I keep telling you that, Adam.
All
Somebody asked us really, they said, hey, can I use Power Apps to write data to
Oh,
Fabric?
don't do that. Well,
I mean, I'm not saying don't do
well,
it. It was interesting,
it
though.
depends. But yeah, I wouldn't do that against a warehouse or a lakehouse.
Yeah. And so it's a unified SQL engine. It's for citizen and pro developers. How many of you can't write SQL, some dialect of SQL? Oh, never, ever.
Really?
Wow, okay, a few people. But
That's okay.
watch
Copilot
this.
can do it for you.
No. So frustrating. How many people can write SQL? Right? Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has
Not
written
everybody.
some
They do
dialect.
over here.
It's okay. We go teach them. It's not hard. SQL's easy.
Yeah.
It's like easy like DAX, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking to Marco about it.
Because we use Copilot for that also.
No, we don't use Copilot. It is a Lake Centris database, which is interesting because guess what? All the files, just like in the Lakehouse, and I didn't mention this, are all stored as Parquet Delta tables. Okay, they're all Parquet tables in Delta format.
In the one lake.
In the one lake.
In the one lake.
They're all in the one lake, and all of these compute engines can read those Delta tables, all of them. So every compute engine can read it. If I do it with Power BI, if I create it with KQL, if I do it with Warehouse, Lakehouse, I forgot.
Yeah, I know.
Right, you can
So
do
many
cross-database querying, so you can do 3-part naming, you can't do 4-part. It's always governed. It's different, because with the Lakehouse, when you start doing inserts, updates, and deletes, you need to maintain those files, because the Parquet file, especially those in Delta format, when you do a lot of transactions against it, you can grow the file numbers can grow, and we'll talk about the anatomy of a Parquet file tomorrow in our session. But the number of files can grow, and you need to do some optimizing and some vacuuming to clean up those files. Yeah, vacuuming. It really sounds like I know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, very convincing. And so you have to do this to optimize those files in your Lakehouse. With the Warehouse, you don't have to do that. So why do I have to do it with Warehouse?
It does it for you.
It does it for you. Why can't we just do it for them with the Warehouse too?
That's what I
Why can't we
Or
just click a
Lakehouse,
button
the
for the
Lakehouse.
Lakehouse? Why can't we just click a button and say optimize? You actually can, and I didn't show that. Excursion. Watch this.
Yes, because you can do the.
Yeah, right. See maintenance.
Ooh.
Right there. So if
Run
you're in
the
a lake,
vacuum.
if you're in a Lakehouse, as you do inserts, update, deletes, you get more files because it tracks those changes in this JSON file. And so more files, more files, more files, more files, but you need to keep those files clean. And so in a warehouse,
it could lead to performance problems.
oh, it can lead to performance problems. You could hit some guardrails around direct lake where you will fall back to direct query all the time. But when you use this method, and you can write this in Python, you can make this part of your ETL process where you're doing this type of orchestration, but maintenance, and so you can optimize it, you can apply vOrder. Anytime you create a file using our compute engines like the Notebook or pipelines, I forget the other one all the time, Data Flows Gen 2, because I don't use it. And so it will automatically create vOrdered Parquet files for you. It will automatically do that, but you do need to do some maintenance over it. The difference with the Warehouse is we just handle it for you in the Warehouse.
Which is nice.
Which is nice.
It's very thoughtful.
Everything I just said, right there on that slide. Adam's going to get this slide to some people. I don't know what he's going to do with it. It'll happen.
Magic of the cloud.
No, this is a good slide.
Yeah.
I like this slide. I did a lot of work on this slide when I copied it from somebody's deck and pasted it in this one and changed the formatting. And so how do you want to ingest data? If you know Spark, use a Lakehouse. If you know T-SQL, use a Warehouse. Do you need multi-table transactions? Use a Warehouse.
Yep.
Right? What type of data are you analyzing? If you're okay with schema-bound warehouse, use a Warehouse. Schema-bound tables, use a Warehouse. But if you need unstructured data, if you're trying to access, trying to do some analysis over images or videos or, trying to do some sentiment analysis, not that you can't do that in Power BI, but if you need to extract data from these semi-structured files, you need to use a Lakehouse. Yeah.
So another thing that you might want to use a Lakehouse for is...
we're talking about a Warehouse.
No, I know, but you said deciding which one, right?
Yep.
Can I go?
Yes.
All right. So we heard a comment the other day, which we thought was really good. So the idea there was that, look, if you may be working with other types of data, like maybe it's Iceberg, maybe it's something else other than Delta Parquet, from a Lakehouse perspective, it's still Spark. It can go work on those things. When you want to start leveraging it with other analytical engines inside of Fabric, that's when you need to get it into that Delta Parquet. But before that, if you're just exploring data and doing things, you can do all of that with Spark and in notebooks. That still works because it's Spark. And so if that's something that you need to do, that would be a reason to go with Lakehouses.
Yep. Any questions? Yes, sir. Can we make a link?
Like a shortcut?
A shortcut? No.
No.
You can't.
Ideas.fabric.microsoft.com. Get your feedback in.
Yeah, so you can't make a shortcut right now. You can make shortcuts in the KQL database
And Lakehouse.
and the Lakehouse.
Yeah.
Okay. And so create a warehouse, same thing, right? You choose a warehouse, give it a name, spins it up. You don't have to install SQL. You don't have to do anything. It's a great SaaS service. You also, when you create a warehouse, you get an endpoint, a SQL endpoint. The difference, remember I said when you create a Lakehouse, you also get an endpoint. The difference between the two endpoints is with the SQL endpoint, I can create objects. I can insert, I can update, I can change data.
Can I do alter commands?
And so, no, not right now.
Okay.
Dang it, Adam. Nobody was gonna ask that question.
I know, I was helping them out.
Anyway, all right. In the SQL analytical endpoint against the Lakehouse, you only can read.
Yep.
Okay? You can't create objects. You can't manipulate data with that SQL endpoint. You can read.
So I can't write an insert against the Lakehouse.
I can write an insert.
Okay.
So technically you can write Spark SQL and do that in a notebook.
In the notebook.
In the notebook if
In
you
the
want to. Okay, we won't go down that road here because I like my job. And so, but in the warehouse, you can use the SQL endpoint to create objects, to create stored procedures that actually do inserts, updates, and deletes. And so what I've done is I've created this. So I have my Lakehouse, and in my Lakehouse, I have a very simple star schema. God, I hate how long this takes. It'll come up. I have a very simple star schema with one fact and a couple of dimensions, and I've used data flows Gen 2 and pipelines to orchestrate the loading of the warehouse. There we go. And so you can see it took a long time.
It was taking a nap.
So I was taking a nap, I had to wake up. But you can see these are just normal tables that like I would create in if I was using SQL Server, Oracle, Snowflake, whatever, whatever compute engine you want, you can create those objects there. And then what I've done, you can't use notebooks right now against a warehouse, but what I've done is I've created a series of data flows and pipelines to do an incremental load against my data warehouse. Now, full transparency, there's no identity columns right now. We don't support merge statements right now. It's coming.
Yeah.
They're working on it. So you got to kind of finagle these things to work. You got to
I like that.
finagle.
Finagle.
Maybe I'll use it more often since you like it.
I do.
Does it make you feel good?
Yeah.
All right. I always want to make you feel good. And so finagle, you got to, like I had to use row number with the partition by to do my identity columns, and I grab the max every time I do the load, and I increment it by that to do create my surrogate keys. So then I can write a join statement and a store procedure back to the alternate keys. Right? It's really confusing.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot. Right? You got to do these things, but that's how you have to do it today.
But I don't
We're
have to do that in the Lakehouse, right?
No, you got to do something like that in the Lakehouse.
Okay.
It's just more elegant. The Python is a little more
Question
elegant.
up front.
Yes, sir.
So, how would you explain the difference between warehouse and database?
Warehouse and Dataverse.
Dataverse.
Because you can create inserts and new objects.
Yeah, but,
Sure.
but Dataverse, I mean, depending on what you're doing with Dataverse, that's more of an operational type of thing. Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's actually, my understanding is, so we're not experts in Dataverse.
Please, I'm
Full
not.
disclosure. But my understanding is that's leveraging like Azure SQL database from a perspective, but also that's a layer on top of it. There's other infrastructure there, and so that could be a lot slower. But if you're leveraging like Dynamics and Power Apps also, like, yes, we can do a shortcut to that.
Yeah. So it's more of an integration point than a comparison. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think warehouse and Dataverse are two
I would
things.
not do a warehouse on Dataverse personally.
And I know somebody that did
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
That
We
was-
know somebody that did
yeah.
that, but I wouldn't do that. Use
I will also say that when
put
we talk to
put Dataverse in a warehouse.
Now, instead of writing to database, start doing warehouse.
well, sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. Build your warehouse in the warehouse, and
we approve of that. Get it all in Fabric.
yeah. And then you use something like data flows So I have a data flow right here that does an incremental load. Hopefully it connects. It didn't connect this morning. I think I ran out of money on my Azure subscription again.
That's not my problem.
And so,
Oh, we have a question on
oh,
screen.
Miriam asks, how is the performance comparing the Lakehouse to the warehouse?
Ooh, that's a great question. It depends. So
that's a good question,
yeah,
too.
so how do you compare performance between the Lakehouse and the warehouse? And quite honestly, this is what we say on most things, even on Power BI. It's like, hey, how is this going to run with my data? I don't know. I don't know your data, right? So what's the structure of the data? How much data do you have? How many people are hitting it? What's the end consumption look like in the query patterns, right? Those are all factors that come into play. And so in one scenario, Lakehouse may be more performant than warehouse, but another scenario might be the reverse of that. So as with all things, test with your data and do comparisons to see what it is with regards to what you're doing.
That's a good question.
So, yes, sir. Oh.
Manage tables in the Lakehouse or the warehouse?
So the question was, are there any plans to add unique constraints to manage tables from a warehouse perspective?
I don't know.
Yeah. There may be something in the works. We're not specifically aware of something that's coming. So, yeah. Ideas.fabric.microsoft.com. It's on the roadmap with no timeline. Okay, so still go to ideas.powerbi or fabric.microsoft.com.
Good question, though.
Yeah.
It's on the roadmap. We don't know. Nobody knows. All right. And so what I did here.
Another great question in the back there.
Oh. So you want to take a table from the Lakehouse and put it in the warehouse?
Yeah, so if we decide we want to switch, so basically, how do I hot swap from a Lakehouse to a warehouse?
Well, you got to move them. If you're in a Lakehouse, you can create a shortcut to the tables in the warehouse.
Yeah.
If you're in a warehouse, you can use SQL, and you could query the Lakehouse.
Interesting. So could we,
what?
Using OneLake Explorer, just copy the Delta files?
Oh, maybe you could. Let's write that down.
We'd have to try that. I don't know. Maybe that'll be a video. Who knows? Patrick with his fancy note-taking application called Notepad. Yes, sir. So the question is, with warehouse, do we have full access to all T-SQL operations?
Not yet.
Patrick already mentioned, like, we don't have merge, like we don't have alter statements. So not yet today. Those are things the team's continuing to iterate on.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we've got documentation on what is supported from a T-SQL capability. But I do believe there are some gaps right now.
Yeah, there's some gaps.
All right.
I don't know everything that's supported.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of questions coming up. All right, we're going to take two more, and then we got to move on. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So the question was, is it the same? Yeah. So the question was, is it the same engine with inside of the warehouse as it was for Azure Synapse Analytics, or is it completely different? There are differences that they did in terms of engineering it inside of Fabric, but it still does leverage the Polaris engine that Azure Synapse Analytics used. So.
Got one more question?
Oh, yeah. There was one more hand. Where'd it go? There it is.
Synapse.
So so the question is what's the storage for a warehouse? Is it like just a table, or what is it? It's OneLake. Delta Parquet.
Yeah, let me show you. So if you go into...
that was some of the architectural changes that were done between Azure Synapse Analytics and Fabric, is to support Delta Parquet.
If you go into the OneLake Explorer and you go into one of the folders, you can do this in the browser also, and you go into the folders itself, you'll see, the Parquet files and everything, the Delta log. It's all, you can go look at it if you want to.
Yeah,
all
that's
that.
that's what it uses.
Yep. Okay. So the warehouse is for SQL developers. If you're a SQL developer, if you can write SQL, use the warehouse. Don't use the Lakehouse. Don't even think about the Lakehouse. Unless you're thinking about taking the journey into it and you find a need to use the Lakehouse, use the Lakehouse. I think Bogdan would be happy hearing me say that. He'd be very happy hearing me say that.
He's always happy.
Yeah, he just didn't invite me on the trips anymore, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Okay, real-time analytics.
Ooh,
How much time do we have?
we got real time.
15 minutes?
We got 15.
Dang it,
Yeah, I know.
dang it.
Go.
Okay, so too many questions.
Too many. That's a lot of questions.
Too many
Go.
questions. So real-time analytics, right? Unlimited volumes of data. Do you have telemetry data? Do you have log data? If you were at the keynote, you saw Yitzhak do a pretty cool demo of package delivery because it's real-time and you can stream data in using Event Hub.
This is we're talking real time, not like the business's ask of real time. Like that's usually like 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a difference between
There
real-time
is.
and
There's
real.
real-time and then
So I
there's
guess if you
real
repeat a
time.
word, it's more significant if you repeat it real time.
time.
Right? It's like, this is hard, right? It's really hard if you repeat it twice. But okay, Adam, whatever you say.
You
So,
got it.
I got it. I
got
do.
it.
I did. I just, you have a different dialect of English than me. And so, anyway, so we got these sources, and we stream the data in and use this thing called an event stream. And this event stream lands the data in the KQL database. And guess what? It's Parquet files. It's Parquet files. Shocking. Everything is Parquet files. And then you could use Data Activator to set up real-time alerts. You can query the KQL database, and you can do things like this. And so let's get a demo.
Yeah, let's go.
I think this is, so I wrote this really complicated Python, hopefully.
And now allow us to go line by line of this script and explain it.
No, I'm not. I'm just hoping it, okay, so it's posting. There we go. I was sweating. And so we're gonna go over to my KQL database. So same thing, you choose new, you create a KQL database, it spins it up.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to do much. And so what I did was I went out to Azure and I created an event hub. You can do IoT hub, you can create an event hub, and I'm simulating the PowerShell script right now is writing data to my event hub. So let's pretend, Adam is one of my ice cream truck drivers. I own a fleet of ice cream trucks out here in Farnborough. I don't know how you pronounce it, but you know where I'm at here in the city. And so Catherine corrected me a couple of times on the pronunciation. I'll get it one day.
It hasn't stuck.
No, it has not.
No.
And so I own a fleet of ice cream trucks. Adam's one
I
of
like
the
ice cream.
Yeah, I know. That's why you're one of the drivers. But we got to check our inventories as Adam brings this truck back because he tends to eat all the ice cream. And so, but we want to monitor the temperatures of the ice cream truck because if it drops below a certain temperature, if it goes above a certain temperature, the ice cream will start to melt.
Yeah, and Adam doesn't like soft serve.
Adam doesn't like soft serve. But we need to keep it at a certain temperature. So if it drops below that temperature, so I put all these little IoT devices on my ice cream trucks. Adam doesn't realize
He's tracking me now.
Tracking him. I'm Big Brother. I'm tracking everywhere he goes. And so then I set up this event stream in Fabric. I should have clicked this 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Because things tend to seem to be running slow. But anyway, what's happening is my source is that event hub, and it's taking that data and it's streaming that data in to
It's going to load just a little bit at a time.
a little bit. Look at it, it's going like 1%, 2%. Golly.
Because it's real time.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
It's real time. It's real time. I had not laughed the entire session. I've been doing really good. And so when you set up your event stream, you choose the source, and you have a few options here. You can use some sample data. Like I said, you can use things from Azure, or you can write your own custom app. And then you set up your destination. And so your destinations, you have a couple of choices. You can land this in a Lakehouse, KQL database, or Reflex. You can also do some event processing, and this is what Yitzhak talked about earlier, where you can actually do some aggregations or filtering of the data. So instead of taking all the data in, maybe I want to stream one set of the data to one location, stream an aggregated version to another location, something like that. You can do things like that. And so it's streaming my data. You can see my data coming in right now. And so now what I want to do is go take a look at my database, which I should have opened already also because things appear to be taking a little bit and we're running out of time.
Running at Patrick speed.
And I still need to talk about Power BI. So it's going to load up. And what you'll see is that it'll show you how much data I'm consuming. And this is the best part of the demo. And if this doesn't work, we're just going to skip ahead to Power BI and just chalk this up
It
to
makes me sad, though.
experience. Dang it. So all the data streaming in.
There you go.
It's so
There you
great. And so I've consumed this amount of data. You can see the tables. You can create shortcuts here. And so I want to explore this data. So this is a true story.
This is great.
We were out in Oslo
Yeah.
at Fabric, February. It was like the coldest place I've ever been in my life. I'm
very
still cold from there. I don't ever think I'm going to get over that temperature.
It's called
in my life.
frostbite.
It was frostbite. And so I'm streaming my data in. You can see I have my table, RTA ice cream. And so I want to explore this data, okay? I'm going to click Explore, and everything is just taking so long. Okay, and so we were sitting right outside the room right before we presented this, and I'm like, Adam, I need you to write some KQL for me. And he's like, yeah. This is literally what Adam did. I was so embarrassed by this. I was like, come on, man.
No. So what he said was, Adam, this is what I would write in T-SQL. I need you to write this in KQL. I got to go over there for a little bit, so I want you to do my job and write my statement for me.
This is what Adam did. This is what Adam wrote.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What
He's
is
like,
that?
He's
right?
like, no, I want you to do like a group or a where and all that other stuff. So
And so he's such a smarty pants. He goes, you can write SQL there.
yeah, just write SQL.
I'm like, no, you can't. So you see this little Power BI icon? Because I want to use that to explore the data that's coming in. So Adam's like, write some SQL. So I said, okay, I'm going to write some
How
SQL.
would you write that in SQL?
So what I want is,
You got DBA in your Twitter handle.
yeah, I just can't type that good.
That's not my problem.
All right, so select start from RTA. And why is the IntelliSense not working? Ice. That's all right, I'll get it. Ice cream.
This
there
is
we go.
why we're going till 5:30 tomorrow
All right.
morning.
So run this, and it brings my
Bam.
data back.
Just works.
Like, what?
Now wait.
But that little icon's not enabled anymore.
Yeah.
So there was Devang. Devang was in the keynote. He was the delivery. I don't know his last name. Do you know Devang's last name?
I don't.
Okay.
Shah.
There you go.
There you go.
So he was sitting in the front row of this session. He goes, Patrick, you could do this. And I'm like,
Well, no. Wait. So because we said, look, there's a website out there that actually
Yeah.
gives you the conversions.
Yeah.
So it gives you examples of like if you were to write this in T-SQL, this is how you would write it in KQL. I'm like, it's amazing. This is a great resource.
Yeah.
And that's when Devang was like, or you could just write this one keyword above your T-SQL statement.
So he said, finish your statement, Patrick. He said, finish your statement. So I finished my statement, and it came back, and he was like, do this. He's like, do this. He said, go on line one.
This is great.
It was so funny. He's like, go on line one, press enter. I felt like I was in class. He did this in the session. He's like, press enter. He's like, turn on caps lock, because I want you to make this all capital. He said, type explain.
Yeah.
I said, but what about the red squiggles? He said, shh. Like, shh, you do Power BI, be quiet. Just do what I'm telling you to do. And I'm like, no, red squigglies, this is not gonna work. He's like, run it. Listen to me, run it. I ran this.
There's
It
your
gave me the
KQL statement.
KQL. I pasted in. I selected. There's my report. My Power BI button is enabled. I run it. I get the exact same data. Are you kidding me?
Bananas.
Are you kidding me?
Bananas.
How can Microsoft make this so easy?
Yeah.
Right? That's why the stock price is
Why
so high.
can't notebooks be that easy?
What'd you say?
Why can't notebooks be that
Hey,
easy?
not like this. This is nice. So I can write the SQL and say, explain it, and it makes Python for
Because
me.
you know SQL.
I do know SQL. I know it a lot. Right? So now you can take this and you can actually build a Power BI report if you want to. I don't have time right now to build a Power BI report.
Because we
but you
got to
can-
talk about Power BI.
Because we got to talk about Power BI. You can drag and drop. You can actually save the report out. I do think I had the forethought. I did not. It's a great report. But you can create the report based on that result set and build out the report. You can set auto refresh on so you can see it refreshing in real time. So it's pretty cool, right? It's an option that you have. So when you think about warehouse and lakehouse, I think this is a different concept because if you're not looking for real-time data, go with the lakehouse or the warehouse. When you start looking for real-time things, you should look at this.
So the other thing too, those like a KQL database, if you're doing like telemetry type stuff or time-based analysis, those types of things, that's where KQL databases really shine.
Yeah. And so this was actually a debate because is Power BI a place to create objects so that other people can consume it in Fabric?
Of course.
Okay. He's so confident about it.
That's data sets.
So remember, we had 2 initial storage modes. Direct query, which is blazing fast.
Everybody uses it.
Everybody uses it. Direct query, Power BI generates some DAX. The DAX is converted to the dialect of the source. It pulls the query back. For little baby
Amazing.
data, it's great.
It's amazing.
Amazing. When you start working with big data, not so great. Import mode, you got to pull all the data into cache. If you got a little bit of data, it's great. If you got a lot of data, you got to do some things. Maybe you set up aggregations. Maybe you have composite models. Maybe you do incremental refresh.
You got to layer.
It's like an
it.
onion.
Yeah.
It's like an onion. And so you got to do all these things to make it work. Microsoft introduced Direct Lake mode. What time's our session tomorrow, Phil? Noon. Come to Phil and I session tomorrow to learn more about Direct Lake.
Prathis.
It's at the same time as Prathis.
Oh. You got to decide.
Woo, 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 woo.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to talk more about Direct Lake, but basically, Power BI pages the data from the Parquet files.
Yes.
Very, very brief summary, okay, of it. So you don't have to worry about importing all the data. You don't have to worry about
There's no
querying
refresh.
the data. There's no refresh of the data. It's just
maybe.
all, right? But what's interesting is that there's a property that you can set that will allow you to integrate Power BI with OneLake. And so what that means is when you do all your Power Query, how many people do, I'm going to say this, they're ETL in Power Query? Don't lie. Just be honest.
It's the
Yes.
best.
There's a lot of people that use Power Query as an ETL tool,
It's the
and it's
best.
okay. It's okay.
That's.
Data flows, right?
Yeah,
Data flows. Thank you, Catherine.
But that's what it is.
Right? And so you go through, you have this person that's really good and efficient with Power Query, and they load and they do all these pivots and unpivots and they do merges and appends. Don't do merges and
Don't
appends.
do that.
But they do these things, and then you have this great model in Power BI. But where else can you use that model? Really, where else? You can create composites and things like that. But what if I have a Lakehouse and I want to use the calendar table that Catherine created in data flows? Well, in Power Query. How do I access that? Well, what you can do is you go into your workspace. Let's go to the workspace here. Power BI Final. So organized.
Yeah.
So organized.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Bless you.
Not used to that.
No, you're not. And go to the settings.
Sorry.
That's funny. Let's see. Schedule refresh. Oh, because you own this. I'm going to take this
Take it
over.
over. Take it
Take
over.
over. I'm gonna
It's
take
not going to
over.
break anything.
It's probably going to break something, but that's
It's
okay.
going to break a little bit.
And so you go to your refresh right there. Sorry. That's not where I want to go. You go to OneLake integration, and you can turn it on. Once you turn that on, guess what it does to your tables in Power BI?
They're in OneLake.
It makes them Delta Parquet files. Okay?
In the OneLake.
In the OneLake. And
The
so if I
OneLake.
go to Power BI Final, where are you, Power BI Final? There we go. And I go to my semantic model, and I go to my tables, and I go to my calendar table. There you go. It actually makes them Delta Parquet files.
So
Guess-
now we can take all our Excel files, import them into our Power BI model, get it back into OneLake, so I can create other things into another Power BI report, so I can export it back to Excel.
No. What you can do
That was my
is-
takeaway.
What you can do, and this is not, at least the last time I looked at this, it's not quite baked yet. It's something we're working on. There's something that's coming out pretty soon to solve this, where you can add them to semantic models. But what you'll see is the first phase of this, if I go to my Lakehouse, I can
Run the vacuum.
I can create a shortcut to tables in my OneLake. I can go find that Power BI model. I forgot the name of it. I forgot where it was at. I think this is it right
Power
here.
BI Final.
Right? I can click this,
Yeah.
choose next. There's my tables that I did all this Power Query work from. I did all this work in Power Query, and my analysts, somebody wants this employee table or geography or product or whatever it is. I can choose one of these tables, click next, and create, and it's going to create it as a shortcut in my Lakehouse down here, and I can actually start using this with queries and things in my Lakehouse.
So you can leverage the work that you already did.
You can
We're not-
leverage
we
the
don't
work you-
necessarily have to recreate
You
everything.
don't.
Yeah.
It just works,
Nice.
just like that. And
Yeah.
we have 1 minute for questions.
Catherine's got a question, probably
Okay,
on the
go
screen.
ahead, Catherine. Okay. Wait. When is the panel? Where is the panel? Gate 4. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, gate 4. We're going to do like a Q&A panel thing with a bunch of people, so come on over.
If you can't use identity yet, and you can write
Uh-oh.
SQL in notebooks,
I think she's trolling us.
why would I use a warehouse if I can just use a lakehouse?
Security. That's all I have.
Security.
She said we can't use identity yet.
No,
Identity
no,
columns.
Oh
Identity.
my gosh.
Okay. So if you can't use identity in the warehouse, why would you use the?
And I can write SQL in a notebook.
Yeah, I could do that in the Lakehouse, so why would I use the warehouse?
Why would I use it?
Because you don't know how to write Python.
But you don't have to because you can write SQL.
So use the Lakehouse.
Use a Lakehouse then.
Okay, but why would I use a warehouse?
If you don't know how to write
So one of the reasons, though,
Python.
no. So one of the, for me, one of the-
Store procedures.
Well, yeah,
Store
yeah, but-
procedures, functions, views.
yeah.
Right, you can
but
create
one of
views
the-
in Python too.
No. But one of the big things on the warehouse side, though, is you have that
Great
ACID
question.
approach from like a true database perspective, where you don't have that
Oh.
on the Lakehouse side.
Yeah.
I know, but I had to answer the question.
No,
with
no, that's
something.
kind of no. It's a good question. It's a very
it is.
valid question, right? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I also
Catherine,
think you
because
need to keep that in the context of today versus as updates come out. So what we learned in Power BI is updates come quickly, and so
quick and fast.
yeah.
Good question though. Way to
Yes.
stump the chumps. Next. Yes, one more question. I
That's
think
it.
we got to go.
Yeah.
Mark Price Mayer.
Yeah, it
He
depends.
said it's
It
quicker.
depends.
Well, that's because Mark works on the warehouse.
Ask him
That's
if he
why he
actually.
said.
Well,
He's a PM on the
he's
warehouse.
a little
team.
biased, but ask him also, did he actually try it on the Lakehouse?
Yeah, yeah. So
Now,
you
it's
got-
again, it goes back to what I said before. It depends on your data, your structure, all those things.
will it perform better
Wow.
in direct lake for Power BI? It depends. There's so many factors. I don't know what the data looks like. I don't know what the structure of your model is. I don't know if you're partitioning. I don't know how much, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to answer.
gotta test it.
You got to test it. All right. Thank you all. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you all.